Hi, welcome. I am so glad that you're here. If you've seen any of my videos before, or if you've been around on my social media, you might have heard me saying that my goal is to help you heal emotionally so you can build a life that feels like your own. But I realized that I never really told you what that means. And I want to talk about it because for the longest time, I didn't even know what that meant either. And now that's my whole goal with this channel. I had no idea what it meant to feel at home in my own self. I didn't even know who I was or what I wanted because I was so used to living on autopilot and doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. So in this video, I want to walk you through what it means to build a home within yourself. We're going to talk about what disconnection from yourself really looks like, how that shows up in your relationships today, and how to rebuild a relationship with yourself so you can find that safety within. So no matter what happens in your life, you are at peace and you're being true to yourself. I'll also walk you through some practical steps because I want you to be able to start this today. And for that, I created a journal that we're going to talk about it later in the video, but just so you know, it's linked in the description below. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Isadora, and for too long, I lived a life that didn't even feel like mine. I know what it's like to live a life where you're constantly emotionally exhausted, disconnected from myself, and just pretty miserable all the time. It took me over 10 years of healing, of doing the work, and even getting a clinical psychology degree to finally build a life that I'm obsessed with. It took me a long time to find the answers I needed, but I don't think it has to be like that for you. And that's why I create the content that I create, so you can start your healing journey today. So let's get started. The first thing that I want us to look at is at the why. Why do you feel disconnected from yourself? Where did it all start? Because I firmly believe that once you understood the root, what really caused you to behave and think the way that you do today, it's much easier to go about undoing that. You started to disconnect from yourself the moment that you started to believe that the character or the version of you that was performing was more likely to receive love, connection, attention, approval than the real you. If this is a little abstract, I want to give you some examples so it gets a little bit easier to understand. I want you to imagine when you were younger. If you were honest about how you felt, were you received with comfort and love, or were you told that you were too sensitive or too dramatic? If you tried to express a need, were you seen as selfish, demanding, needy? If you made a mistake, were you met with patience, or were you shamed, punished, or even made to believe that you were the mistake? If you were playful, loud, full of energy, was that a part of you that was celebrated, or were you told to quiet down, be more chill? Do you see where I'm going with this? What I want you to understand is that you didn't just wake up one day and you decided you didn't like yourself and you wanted to be disconnected from yourself. It's like little by little, you started living like this version of yourself that in a way kept love coming back. It's a version that kept other people happy, kept your parents pleased, kept the peace maybe. And in this process, you start to forget what you like, what you want, what you need, and who you are. And after a while, that becomes your normal. You learn to stop asking what it is that you want and instead, what is it that they want from me? And that keeps going. And that's why you feel like there is a disconnection, because there is. So let's talk about what that looks like in your day-to-day life today. For me personally, I realized that I was really disconnected from myself when I came across this picture of myself at work and I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. When I saw this picture, that's when it hit me how high function I had become, but how I had completely abandoned myself and how I was incredibly burned out. But I think what got me the most was that it clicked for me. It made me realize how all the habits that I was sustaining at that point that I thought were rewards or that were making me feel good, they were just me trying to numb and push aside my feelings. It wasn't until the picture that I realized that everything that I was doing, the eating, the drinking, the vaping, all the things that I was doing, thinking, oh, this is my reward after a long day, this is my little treat after work, they weren't really treats. They were just numbing, masqueraded as such. It turns out I was so disconnected from myself that I was doing everything in my power to just feel as little as possible. But this disconnection can actually look different for everyone. So I wanted to give you a few examples of what this might look like for you. Maybe you are in a similar situation situation to the one I was in, or you could be in a completely different one. It could be that you are always so busy that you feel like you're not really living anymore. Or maybe you're saying yes to things that you don't want to do, but you don't really want to disappoint anyone. Maybe you're doom scrolling every single night because you can't bear to be alone with your thoughts. Maybe you haven't stopped to ask yourself what it is that you want in a very long time. Or maybe you noticed how you don't feel anything at all. You don't feel sad, you don't feel happy, you're just numb. That's disconnection. That's how it shows up in your life. And if any of that sounds familiar, I want you to know it's not too late to come back to yourself. I did it, but here's the thing. This disconnection doesn't show up just when you're alone, when you are on your own and doing your own things. It follows you into your relationships too, especially in your relationships. Because when you've been disconnected from yourself for this long, being in relationships with other people can make you distance from your own self even more. Because when you're not clear on who you are, it's really easy to become what someone else wants you to be. Next thing you know, you have molded yourself into this perfect version of you that you believe is now deserving of love and connection. And these relationships might even feel close, except that it's not you they're close to. It's the version of you that you believe is better. That's also why your social battery might drain super quickly, because you're just constantly performing, and that's exhausting. And when you spend years doing just that, of course you're feeling disconnected from yourself. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to stay that way. There's a way to feel safe in yourself, to trust your inner voice again, and to build something real, something solid inside of you. So let's talk about how it is that we can build that foundation within yourself. The very first thing you need is safety. And when I tell you, I love that word, because once you build that, so much changes in your life. It gets so good. So just bear with me. And when I say safety, it's important you know I'm not talking about physical safety. I'm talking about emotional safety. You need to feel like it's okay, like it's safe to exist, to feel, that's a big one, to take up space. I remember even thinking about it, like taking up space felt terrifying to me. Now, hey, I want all the space I can possibly take. And here's another big one too, which is to feel safe making mistakes. And for a lot of us, that's new. Like, even though I've been in this journey for so long, even talking about these things, it brings back so many memories. I remember what it was like to be in that position and to feel like there was no safety within myself, to show up, to be myself. Whew, it was terrifying. And the whole reason why it might feel so uncomfortable is if you grew up, like I was mentioning in the beginning, in chaos, in criticism, in rejection, in conditional love, being yourself might actually feel unsafe. It's a scary feeling. So what does emotional safety even feel like? What does that even look like? One example is it looks like kindness. It looks like self-talk that's kind, not mean. And that goes for things like looking at a picture of yourself and saying, oh, that's ugly, or I don't like this about myself, or looking in the mirror and immediately going for judgment, or doing something that you're not necessarily proud of, but instead of criticizing yourself, try to be proud of what you just built, of the fact that you just tried, instead of immediately going for that rejection. I have a rule, and the people around me know this, that they don't get to talk bad about themselves when they are around me. So if you want to practice this, just imagine I'm literally next to you. I know that for now we're strangers, but just imagine that I'm literally next to you and I'm watching you, because if you are around me and you are especially if you are someone that I love and care for dearly, you don't get to talk bad about yourself. You don't get to call yourself stupid when you make a mistake. You don't get to say that you are ugly or that something about you looks off, because I would never speak to you in that manner. So I don't let them either. I'm the queen. When I say the queen, I mean it, of sweet, loving, kind self-talk. But it took me a lot of practice. And that's something as small as, like, if you knock off an object, or if you do something silly and you go immediately for, I am so stupid, or I'm so dumb, or it's okay. It's okay if you do it. Don't double the judgment and then call yourself an idiot for calling yourself stupid. Just acknowledge and be aware that you said it, and try not to do it again. Because the more you're kind to yourself, that's a big step in feeling that safety. Because if you are the number one mean girl in your own life, of course you're not gonna feel safe around you. Another way that this safety might show up is you being comfortable with your own thoughts, no matter what they are. It might also look like you slowing down when you really want to keep pushing through, but you just know that you need a break. This safety also looks like you welcoming and just letting your feelings be there without needing to numb them, without needing to get rid of them, or or without having to fix them. From there, the next step is clarity. And if you have seen any other of my videos, you might have heard this word before because I'm a huge fan. The more clarity you have, the better you're gonna be at solving anything, at understanding anything. And that goes for building that safety, to building that foundation within yourself. Write this down if you need to, but you can't build a life that feels like home if you don't know what home looks like. So you need clarity. You need to know things like what matters to you. What are your values? What are things that are important to you? How do you want your days to look like? What makes you feel alive? What gives you peace? What feels right to you in your core? Not other people, not what they want you to think or feel, like to you in your core. What is it that feels right to you? Having that kind of clarity is really gonna do the anchoring job of holding you down in that security, in that safety that you know who you are and what's important to you and what matters to you. And once you have that, you can get into my favorite part, which is your non-negotiables. These are your boundaries. If you know me and you're watching this video, you know that's one of my favorite words that's in my vocab every single day. Your girl loves her boundaries, your needs, and your time. Actually, I love all of those. I love my needs. I love my time. I love my boundaries. And I love the boundaries and needs and times of other people too. But you know what's crazy? The way that I'm telling you these things right now, when I first started this journey, it felt so incredibly selfish. Like I felt like I was the most selfish person on the face of the planet for saying, hey, this is what I need. This is what I want. This is how I want to spend my time. That felt horrible. I was so used to like shrinking myself I had this desperate need of people pleasing and just to be loved and liked. And it turns out I didn't even like myself. So what's the point? And now I get to tell you, hey, you know what? It's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel very selfish, but eventually it's gonna feel really good. Eventually you're gonna be able to tell me, hey, Isa, you know what? Boundaries, that's my new favorite word. When that happens, you let me know. And another thing that I wanted to share with you that was part of this process too, is I have gotten so comfortable with people thinking whatever they wanna think of myself. And even uttering these words, my version of 10 years ago would be like, not even 10 years. The one from the picture that was in 2018. She would be terrified that I'm even uttering these words to you right now. But I am so comfortable. I don't mind being the villain in other people's stories. I don't mind if they want to think whatever it is that they want to think of me, because I know my truth. I know who I am. I know what's important. If you want to think whatever it is that you want to think because you no longer have control over me, have a go at it. And eventually these things really, they stop getting to you because you know that they aren't true, because you know yourself so much that when people tell you certain things, it comes through here and you don't even pay attention to it. And just to put into perspective, like as if someone came up to you and today and they were like, you know what, your name is Blueberry and you are allergic to oysters. If your name isn't Blueberry and you're not allergic to oysters, guess what? You're not gonna care. You might be like, not really, but you're not gonna be like fighting on them and then trying everything in your power to prove them wrong, because it's not true. It doesn't matter. It only gets to you when you believe that what people are saying or thinking of you is true. So if you don't like something about yourself and they point out, of course that's gonna bother you. I know this is a silly example, but it's just to put into perspective that if you are affected by what people think or say about you, you might believe to some degree that is true. So the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to spend time with yourself and honestly like her, fall in love with her, enjoy her presence, the more you're gonna know and have this certainty of what you are and who you are and what's true to you, and eventually these things won't matter. So there's a lot that I don't care about anymore, and it's so nice. It's such a huge relief, and I can't wait for you to experience that too. And like I said, with time, all of this that I'm telling you, it gets so easy. You just need to get past this initial discomfort of sitting with yourself, because you are, after all, a stranger. This is like, just think of like a first date all over again, or you're meeting this new friend for the first time. You don't even know who you are. You have lost that sense of self. So treat it as such. Sit with yourself. Spend time with her. Be patient with her. Okay? Very important. Be patient with her. But the more you're willing to get past that initial discomfort, the better you're gonna get at everything that I'm telling you. So I like to get practical. I like to give you suggestions and steps that you can literally take today to get started with this and start your journey. And hey, let's get to know yourself. But I would suggest you start small. You can show up for yourself in small ways. Now, if you don't know what those are, if you don't know what showing up for yourself means to you yet, I would honestly recommend that you try the journal that I mentioned in the beginning. And the more you do this, the more you show up for yourself, the more your foundation starts to take shape. You begin to feel more solid, more rooted. And eventually that's when everything changes. And you're only going to commit to this once you really understand how good life gets. So I do think that you should know what it looks like when that foundation is built. And I can tell you from experience, I have experienced the before and I know the after. And when I tell you the after is worth it, I mean it. And the reason I say that with so much confidence, I don't want you to think that I live this perfect life and nothing ever happens. I don't ever get sad or frustrated. It's not what this is about at all. My life still gets shaken up. I still have things happen all the time. I still go through some really hard things, but that's just part of life. It's like the outside world won't stop just because you're healing and you're doing the inner work. But the difference now, the main difference is that my world, it gets shaken up. I want you to literally imagine, I wish I had something easy to reach for right now, but I want you to literally imagine your world shaken up right now. And to me before, my life would fall apart. Things would happen and I would just completely crumble. Now it's like, whew, okay, something is happening, but I'm not off my balance anymore. And in fact, you probably wouldn't even know that I'm going through something unless you're literally in my house and you see me maybe journaling more or spending more time, with myself and just in my head more. You would think I'm distant, but I'm literally just in my head a lot more when I'm going through something big or something that has shaken up my world. But I'm not binging. I'm not eating food to punish myself. I'm not in bed for days straight. I'm not in a dark room doing things like scrolling on my phone for hours on end, just not wanting to understand what's happening. It's quite the opposite now. I actually like to spend time up in here and here too. That's really important too. Just letting these feelings happen, just let things pass through and really acknowledging and sitting with them, because I'm actually sitting with myself and that's not something that's scary anymore. So if you needed any motivation to really connect with yourself, let this be it. Because one thing that I understand is this pain, is this frustration of just when things happen, you're like, I don't have the energy anymore. I don't have the strength anymore. And it feels like it's one thing after the other thing. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a solid foundation, any little thing will throw you off balance. Another thing that was so valuable too that I learned in this process is how much I had actually tried building my, home in other people's foundations. And by building my home in other people's foundations, it had to be up to their code, how they wanted it to look like, how they wanted it to be, and how it made them comfortable. But it's like you trying to build a house. Imagine you're building a literal home in someone else's land. And I'm not an engineer by any means, but I know that if you hire an engineer to build a house for you, they will look at the land. They will make sure that the foundation is good, it's solid, that you can even build on this land. That's the very first thing that they're gonna check. They need to know what's underneath. They need to know what's at the bottom. And then they go into the foundation. They need to know what's there before they start building the home. The same goes for yourself, for the home within yourself. If you are anything like me and you have spent most of your life just building your home in other people's foundations, it crumbles. It doesn't stay up for long. But the moment that changes, it's worth it, because life will become magic. It gets so good. It gets so beautiful. So if this video spoke to you, and I really, really hope it did, I want to leave you with one final message, which is it's not too late to come back to yourself. I don't care what your circumstance is. I don't care about what it is that you have going on in your life. It's not too late. You don't have to, and you're not going to, okay? Patience. I'm gonna put this word on the screen here. Patience. We're gonna be patient and kind to yourselves. You don't have to rebuild your life overnight. It's not gonna happen overnight, but you can start small. You can start today. You can start tomorrow morning. And if you don't know where to start, I would highly recommend you do try the journal. It's free. You can download it. You can print it. You can add it to your iPad, or you can just look at the questions and copy them to your journal. But it shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes a day. Some of the questions are literally one-liners, and that was very intentional because this is a new habit for you, and I don't want you to overthink it. I don't want you to spend a lot lot of time or dread the I have to spend half hour doing this. No, it's 5 minutes if you want to. I did add a second part which has some questions that you can dig deeper if you want to. But what I would suggest is that you just follow the 14 days and you answer the questions in the journal for 14 days straight. I think that's a good amount of time for you to get the ball rolling and getting the habit of sitting with yourself. Can we try it? And can you maybe let me know how it went in the comments? I would love to know. If you could also subscribe, that would make me very happy. You don't have to, but it would make me very happy. So thank you for doing that. And that's it for this week. I hope to see you again next week, and I hope to see you in this comment section. Let me know how this journal went. And thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.